How do you help your children become captivated with the truth of the Bible? How do you turn on their imagination and allow them to dive into Scripture so they're not just reading a dusty document from antiquity or something for old people who like that kind of stuff? Today at the Radio Backyard Fence, meet Patrick. He is the answer Jack and Liz came up with. He's a 10-year-old boy who gets yanked into his Bible to experience adventures firsthand, and with a name like Wigglesworth, you know it's got to be good. The question on our Facebook page today is, what creative way have you encouraged your kids to dig into the Bible? There's some interesting responses there. I'd love to hear from you today as we talk with Jack and Liz about their answer to that question. What they've done might help you energize your children's imagination and draw them into exploring the Bible themselves. Let's get started with the program From the Heart, to the Heart, for the Heart, online at chrisfabrylive.org. Here's our team. Ryan's doing all things technical. He navigated that big storm yesterday in northern Indiana. Glad you're back, Ryan. Trisha's out today. Our producer in her stead is Lisa. Lisa, thank you for your work. Josh will be answering your calls. The other members of the team are our friends and partners who support this program with a gift, either monthly or with a one-time gift. And I see a few stars this month. That means people who've never given have done that. Thank you for clicking through or calling us. I choose a thank you each month that I think will be something helpful, encouraging, inspiring in some way to you. And this month it's a cookbook. That's right. Dr. Kathy Koch has recipes for better relationships with your adult kids. Her last name is spelled Koch, pronounced Cook. That's why I call it cookbook. It doesn't have real recipes. I have heard from so many people over the years, parents heartbroken because there's a fracture in the relationship with an adult child or maybe several adult children. I would love to send this to you for your own encouragement or for somebody else. If you give a gift today, we're going to send you Resolve Conflict and Find Peace and Hope with Adult Children. Or you can pass this along to somebody you know who's going through that same pain. It's easy. Just go to Chris Fabry Live, Fabry. The hardest thing is to spell my last name right. Fabry. chrisfabrylive.org. Scroll down, you'll see the book by Dr. Koch. 866-95-FABRY is also, if you want to talk with a real human being, 866-953-2279. And thank you for your support of the Radio Backyard Fence. One more note, Rosie's Book Club is next Monday. There's still time to read our next novel. It's short, really interesting. It's been a little challenging for me, so see what you think. I've heard a lot about George MacDonald through the years, read a lot of quotes by him, and I know C.S. Lewis and other luminaries love MacDonald. So Rosie chose The Wise Woman as our next read. My copy's only about 100 pages. We'll be talking about it on Monday, so grab a copy from wherever you grab copies of old books and join us for Rosie's Book Club 2.0. You can find out more at our Facebook page. We have a link right there, chrisfabrylive.org. Well, I wanted to have Patrick on with us today, but he wasn't available, so I've done the next best thing, and that is to invite Jack and Liz Hagler. And with a name like that, Jack, when I'm buying a used car, you got to come with me to do that because you were a born haggler, right?
There you go. There you go. I said, Liz is actually better than I am at the haggler, but she's now adopted the name. So
love it. This is the team, folks, that came up with the idea for the series of graphic novels titled Patrick Wigglesworth's Bizarre Bible Adventure. And I'm going to say that many, many times. And one of these times I'm not going to get it right, but it's okay. So, Jack, you studied engineering at UC Berkeley. And I don't see that as the usual path to the pastorate and then authoring a children's series. So explain that to me.
Well, some people are surprised. I became a Christian at UC Berkeley. So I was and got involved there. I won't go into the whole story, but got involved with what was then called Campus Crusade for Christ, now Cru. But was in engineering for a while. And anyway, I went down to visit Brazil with some missionaries, felt like God wanted me to be involved. So I went up to seminary, up at Western Seminary in Portland, Oregon. Right. And the book obviously came about a lot later. But when I went to seminary, right in the beginning, I was a pretty new Christian. I remember the very first course I took was an Old Testament survey class. And I remember just with sitting there with my mouth open, realizing that all of this fits together, from the Old Testament, New Testament. And it was in my heart at that time, just want to be able to provide that big picture overview of the scriptures. And little did I realize at the time that when Liz and I were already, well, actually, I wasn't even married yet when we first went up there, but that Liz, who's had a heart for children's book, Bill's book since he was young, that would all come together and eventually become part of this Patrick Wigglesworth Bizarre Bible Adventure.
You have to tell me, though, I had a pastor who came to the University of Arizona on a baseball scholarship and studied here, and he had, I can't remember if it was an arm or a knee injury, but he was walking back to his dorm lower than low and reached down and picked up a tract from the gutter, went back, read the passages in the Bible, and became a Christian that way. It's just like incredible.
Yeah, wow.
So at UC Berkeley, you didn't pick up a tract, or was it somebody on the street corner preaching?
No, it was a human tract. I was in a fraternity. One of my fraternity brothers I really respected, and one day I went into his room and I kind of plopped down in his bed, and his name was Marshall. I said, Marshall, what's the difference between your life and my life? And he was part of Campus Crusade at the time, and he pulled out a Four Spiritual Laws and shared it with me. And it took me 2 more years to get to the end of myself. But that's how I first heard the gospel, was through my friend Marshall.
How did you get to the end of yourself? What does that mean, got to the end of yourself?
I had this idea as to what life was supposed to be like growing up. I was very athletically oriented. I was at Berkeley as well, and engineering. And I had this plan. And towards the end of my senior year, that plan started to fall apart everywhere. And I began to realize my plan is a complete failure. And in my mind, in my heart, I'm seeing myself that way. And that's when I began to be open to the Lord speaking to my heart. And then the words from my friend who had shared it 2 years before came back to me. And I just got down on my face and started crying and cried out to God. I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but later on I got involved right away with Campus Crusade. And obviously I started really understanding what my faith was all about.
Yeah, God did. God knew what you were doing.
Yeah, totally.
That's the important thing, I love the quote by Mike Tyson, who said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth.
Exactly.
That's pretty much like our life. Okay, so Liz, you knew early on, when you were a young girl, you knew you loved to draw, you knew you loved art, to illustrate. Mm-hmm. Did you get a lot of encouragement about that when you were younger?
Yes. I wasn't as talented as Jack and had as many options. So I basically focused in more on that. But so I used to draw my book covers and every place that you could draw. I used to draw. I copied Charles Schultz stuff. And so, yes. And I actually remember at church one time looking at, it was a church experience. And when I was younger, and there was this information for children's books. And I literally thought I could do this. I could do something like this. But we didn't have Google in those days, so it's kind of a long journey to figure out that whole process of how you're going to actually make a living and all the pieces.
But you used to draw in covers of books.
Yeah, I drew covers on books, and I had my first book I worked on was called Thud the Dud, and so I drew all the pictures, and I went to the writers' conferences and all of that whole process. And it was really after we got married, when he was a pastor. I had done some children's books. I did the Early Reader Bible and the Bible Animal Storybook because we met some people in seminary. Multnomah Bible was up there. And then basically from there, we learned, I just started connecting the dots on, hey, maybe I could do an overview of the Bible when he was in the pastorate. Kids they had a lot of Bible stories. They didn't have the big idea of each book in the Bible. So that's kind of when our first book that we worked on, it's called Patrick Wigglesworth's Hooked on the Book. Hooked on the book. Yes. It's been a long time since then.
How did you keep that dream going, though? Because there's a lot of
it was a
lot of rejection,
dream.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of rejection. I think by the grace of God, honestly, I was able to compartmentalize different seasons of my life. I had read a lot of biographies of people that were successful as artists and or different things, and they were mostly men. So I wanted to have a family. So I had to learn to compartmentalize seasons of my life. And Jack, when we first got married, I was saying, "Oh yeah, I want to do this," and he goes, "It's not the right season." So I would work a couple hours a day and just kind of set aside time as we homeschooled our kids and we did the other seasons of life, right? And then when my youngest kid was in high school, then I started like pushing out all the stuff that I had been developing over the years. So yeah, it was a long process.
So there are three books out now. The fourth comes out in February. Am I getting that right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And the first
book
three
four-
are the
Yeah, go
Old
ahead.
Testament, and the fourth
Yes.
will begin in the New Testament. So let me take a
Right.
break. If you go to our website, chrisfabrylive.org, you'll see more about Patrick Wigglesworth's bizarre Bible adventures. And we're going to talk about especially the Old Testament stories and how Patrick gets into them, his snarky attitude, and why this has captivated a lot of young kids. Might be helpful to you as you listen. This is Chris Fabry Live on Moody Radio. The Haglers are with us today at the Radio Backyard Fence. Jack and Liz. Liz Hagler has a BA in Art and English from the University of California, Davis. She's the illustrator of the Bible Animal Storybook and the Early Reader's Bible and co-author of the Patrick Wigglesworth's Bizarre Bible Adventure series. Jack has been a pastor, teacher, executive coach, engineer, senior project manager, astronaut, homeschool principal, he's done everything but used car salesman, and that's coming out probably. He has an MDiv from Western Seminary, he mentioned that, and his passion is to help kids discover God's goodness and plan for their lives in every book of the Bible, and that's why they have written this Patrick Wigglesworth's series. Is it 38 years you two have been married?
42 this
Yeah,
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a earlier.
Well, that
bio.
might have been on one of the earlier books there.
Okay, so 42 years. But you have to know this before we get to Patrick. We have to know the love story. Were you two?
yeah.
How did you meet? What happened?
Well,
Okay.
we were both at Berkeley at the time. I had finished school, and I was Liz came over.
Yeah, I was at California College of Arts and Crafts, and which is in the same area. So
Yeah,
we
I
met at
was-
a Bible study, actually.
Yeah, it was at a house that I was living in, and it was a summertime, and I was teaching a Bible study, and Liz was in the area and came to that study, and that was the first time we met. And
Yeah,
then
and I thought he was really cute. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have a crush on him. And I told God, no, I'm not doing that. So I just gave him up to God at that point. So that was what was different.
But we ended up, I invited her to go to the church where I was going. So little ulterior motives there. But, and so then we started to get to know each other better. And then
It was a
started
lot
dating.
of drama. You don't want to really know the whole story.
Anyway, it took us
a lot of
3 years.
breakups and determining the will of God. And oh my gosh, I don't know if I could pick one. You know, a lot of that.
Liz-
So
Okay,
Liz was
so
more
who
was more
said
decisive
no?
than me.
Did she let you go, Jack, before you let her go?
Every time we progressed in the relationship, there was a breakup. But I wasn't one of those people who was trying to, I wanted to marry somebody that was really excited about marrying me. And he just was not sure. So I said, well, if you're not sure, we got to move away. And so then he would be more sure and we start dating. And then he was not sure. And then I would be like, finally at the end, after several breakups, I said, I had a friend that had really tragedy in her life. And I was sitting there at this situation going, this is not real tragedy, what I'm dealing with. And so I went back to the place. I just read Dobson's book, Love Must Be Tough, too. So I went back to his house and I said, hey, I need to talk to you. I walked up the stairs. I sat down. I realize I'm ready to get married and you're not. So I think it's time to break up. And he goes, oh, and he walked me out and he goes, can I at least have a hug? And And I said, sure, a hug, and then basically
3 weeks later, I asked her
ditched
to marry
him.
me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It
Okay,
was a
is
very
that
dramatic.
do you think, Jack, that part of that is your engineering background, your
Oh,
mathematical
yeah.
mind, that you're looking at all the permutations of what might be, could be?
Yep.
Yeah, yes. And I would also say, just at the time, just not as in touch with my emotional side
Mhm.
and really understanding how my feelings were, kind of how to process those and so forth. I just didn't have a lot of background
Because
in that.
perfection, he
And
really had this mindset that perfection. And I was like, we were pretty on the table about in conversations. It wasn't romantic every moment. So we were pretty straight shooters.
but
And
eventually,
yeah,
God gave me just from a passage in Hebrews where he says, when Abraham had been called by God, and it says he went out where without knowing where he was going.
going right.
Mm.
And God brought that to me and he said, Jack, you don't get all the answers in this. You just got to go out by faith.
Faith. Yeah.
And I did. And it's been great. 42
Yeah.
years later, I'm super happy.
Well, and
How
it
has
was
she
great.
changed you most, Jack?
Yeah.
How's Liz changed you?
Liz is so insightful. And, where I was struggling on digging out my emotions, and we've been spending 42 years, helping me understand, how to really process those emotions and get those out and interact in a way that's, just more transparent, more vulnerable. And we had a conversation for an hour this morning and just about a bunch of different things. And she's great with that.
What about you,
I
Liz?
don't-
How and change is not like Jack needed to change you or you needed to change
No,
Jack,
right.
but you spend 42 years with each other, and something has to happen that because of the iron sharpens iron. So what has he done
Right.
in your life?
Well, Jack is just an anchor of just even. He says what he's going to do. I came from a much more emotional family, and he's just even keel engineer, just loves the Lord with all his heart. And for me, we always go back to what does God have? And I'm just steady. He says what he's going to do and he does what he says. And like for this whole series, even starting it, it was kind of like, hey, this is my chance. Are you on board? And he wrote me a whole thing and said, it's your turn. You've been waiting. And he wrote me a whole commitment on a piece of paper that I framed that he was all in. And we weren't even sure where we were going with this. I had just invested all these years and he was all in. He's just a rock.
He didn't write
way.
that on graph paper, did he?
No.
No, but it was typed.
It was all typed out. He's very committed when he's committed. He's all in. And that's the thing for me. It's just to have a base like that. It's just amazing to be so solid.
That's really good. And I'm glad, we spent the first 20 minutes here just talking about you, but that is going to help some parents who are looking at a graphic novel or who are these people and what are they trying to do?
Yeah.
And they're
Right.
changing the Bible story because it's not the
Right.
King James or NIV or whatever, because it is a story. So now that
Right.
we know where you come from, and child evangelism, you worked at child evangelism as well. Patty Wigglesworth, how did he spring into your consciousness?
Well, we had this other book we did called Hooked on the Book, Patrick's Adventures Through the Books of the Bible. And I wanted to be able to have a series where I have a graphic design background where we had a poem for each book of the Bible.
That was the first
That
book,
was the
yeah.
first one. And that was the one I spent the years building. And as we went out there and we went out and talked to people about it, we had curriculum, we sold it at different places. I realized it needed to be more of a story. And when we were working with Child Evangelism Fellowship, Scholastic came in with all these books and we would be sharing the gospel with all these kids. And then they'd be walking away reading Wimpy Kid books, which is nothing wrong with Wimpy Kid books. But basically for us, we were trying to say, how can I actually told God, I put a Wimpy Kid in one hand and like our book in the other hand. Lord, you've got all these years invested in this. How can I put these together? What can I learn from this style? So we studied the style and that's how it came. We were trying to reach those kids that go to Child Evangelism Fellowship and a lot of families that are newer Christians that don't feel confident in the big stories. We wanted to give them the overview in a very easy way that they could relate to as a family. We do have these free family devotions online that supplement each of them, because a lot of parents, we feel like they don't have the confidence to teach their kids the Bible. And so basically, if they can start laughing and learning together with their kids, then they can start reading verses. Maybe that would be a way that we could start doing family devotions together as a family.
I want to go back to the earlier question, though. Patrick, actually, the name, actually, Patrick, we were trying to figure out what his name should be. And our daughter suggested the name Patrick because it's friendly, kids will like it, and so forth. The Wigglesworth came because of Smith Wigglesworth, who was an evangelist in England. You're probably familiar with.
And we loved
a plumber.
It was funny.
And we loved
the
name.
Yeah.
It was a fun name. There's a bunch of, if you look in there, you'll notice some other Christian last names in particular of sort of famous Christians throughout history are within the book.
We just had fun.
But that's where, and then Patty was just fun because it just kind of rolled off the tongue, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's Paddy, and he's named after his dad's brother who was a bowler, or
right. Yeah, that came in from part of the story. Yeah. If you throw a strike, we'll name him after you.
Weird family, right?
Okay, so this tells you, and here's the other thing I like about the books. It is, you don't have to, Patrick doesn't have to go to sleep or drink a special potion or whatever. No, he just starts reading the Bible and boom, he's there with Moses.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
What really precipitates the whole thing was he opens up the Bible and he looks at it. It's imposing. The Bible is for a little kid, right? And he opens it up and he says to God, he goes, man, where are all the pictures, right?
He doesn't even say it to God. He just says it.
Well, he's just saying it out loud. He doesn't know God's even hearing him. So he says, this is so long. Who would ever read it? Where's Liz, you're looking at the actual, at it. What is it? Read out what it says.
What is this? Why is this book so thick and confusing? What does it have to do with my life? And where are the cartoons, Right. And then what do you know? Someone was listening, because that's when I got yanked into my Bible adventure.
So that's what caused it all. He was just asking some kind of innocent, real life kid questions, and boom, he's in the Bible.
I love it when Adam is naming all the animals, and Patrick wants to label them.
Yeah.
And he tries to label the fish. He tries to label the fish, and they all float away.
And then the porcupine, sticking it on the quill there, that's kind of fun.
Okay, so you would think, and this is because my kids are grown now, and so I didn't know anything about this Wigglesworth kid. But when I got into him, I started looking at him. It's like you go back and forth between what Patrick is experiencing on the playground, in school, with his friends, with the bully, and with his little sister, and with his family, and all of that. And then you go back into the scriptural story, the biblical story, and you kind of ping pong back and forth. And my guess is that in the books that have already been done and that are coming, that there are lessons that he learns that he, puts into practice in his own life, right?
Exactly. Go ahead.
The main thing is he is a normal kid, and he has character transformation. That's what we're concerned about. He's like asking questions, kids that would normally ask. He's just asking questions, because I really think that God isn't afraid of our questions. God isn't afraid of any of these things. So ask away. And that's what Patrick is doing. He's just, learning and asking and having this experience and back and forth. The story really gets really fun in the New Testament, which we won't give any way. But we spent a lot of time with the Jesus part and all the crucifixion and the details. But to give you just a little bit of fun that's coming up is I actually lived as a kid in the Middle East when I was 9 years old. And my father was an ophthalmologist. So some of the stuff God has used from my life experience, we were able to transfer into the New Testament. And Jack's dad did have some of these miracles. We've been able to integrate a lot of the things that God has done into our life, because the other thing that we're kind of big on is this God story concept of kids starting to look at their lives and see, where is God working, and families talking about, where is God working? Where do we see God show up today? And that whole concept Patrick talks about with his family, and part of that.
Yeah, but no, I was going to say, but going back to the back and forth idea, where Patrick has an incident in his own life where there's a struggle, a trial, whatever, and then he remembers something he had learned on his Bible adventure that relates to that, and now he's able to see how the Bible is more relevant to his everyday life. And I think so often for kids, they read the Bible and it's a Bible story and it's kind of separate from them, and they don't see the relevance. And that's what we're trying to get, the connection between what happens in the scriptures and what's happening in a kid's everyday life.
The other thing I love about Patrick, though, the other thing I love about him is that he's just real. He's like Harry Carey. Well, I always used to love to watch Harry Carey because he would just be himself. He popped it up. Patrick is saying the same thing. As a matter of fact, he said the same thing that I said as a kid about a Bible story in the Old Testament. I will tell you about that straight ahead on Moody Radio. Okay, we're having Rosie's Book Club on Monday, but I wonder if there's anybody listening to the sound of my voice right now who has read about Patrick Wigglesworth. I need a book report from someone who is younger than me, who has read this, or maybe a parent who has given this to their kids, and you want to tell me about what was the funniest moment or maybe a poignant moment for your family, because I'm seeing people respond to this online. And so we read this kind of devotionally in devotions, and our kids couldn't tell us, they told us, don't stop now. Is there anybody like that? Have you read about Patrick Wigglesworth's Bible adventure? 877-548-3675. I want a book report right now from somebody in the contiguous United States or outside of that. 877-548-3675. Liz and Jack Hagler are with us. The series is Patrick Wigglesworth's Bizarre Bible Adventure Series. And the first three books deal with the Old Testament. Over My Head, Tricky Times, and Dangerous Dilemmas. Number 4 starts the New Testament. It's coming out, I think, in February. It's called Kid Life Crisis. And you can find out more. You can see a link right there at chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. I remember I had a King James Bible, and it was Moses and the Bulrushes. It was that story. And I remember looking at that and, thinking, are there crocodiles? Are there alligators in here? And thinking, I don't know. And then I read Patrick say the same thing. He channels the same thing that I said as a kid. And here's what it says in the story. So Moses is telling him this, is showing him what happened. And Patrick says, I didn't tell Moses, but I thought it looked like the world's dumbest plan. Putting a baby in a basket on the river makes getting killed even easier. So Patrick is just saying what is on his mind, is in his heart, right, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly. It's what a kid would think.
Keeping it real. That's how
kids want it real, right? That's what they love.
Yes. Yeah. So the first 5 books of the Bible, of all of those of the Pentateuch, what was the hardest thing you tried to let Patrick experience and then convey to the reader?
That's a good question.
Wow.
I mean, some of the things, the polygamy, some of that stuff was hard. All the different wives, that was hard. Because the first book sets the whole stage, the whole story up. There were so many stories. That was hard. And to get it right, because we focused on getting the Bible story in first, and then do the crazy part into the Bible story. So there just were a lot of Bible stories.
I mean, I think I'm not sure I answered the question exactly, but when you have Moses and you have Moses and Aaron, and they're confronting Pharaoh, right? And bringing those things up. And we ended up doing a rap for that. And Liz and I are so far from being rap artists, it's not even funny.
Well,
but it ended up being one of the most fun things that we did, to where it says, hard-hearted Pharaoh, don't you know God wants you to let my people go? And then Pharaoh says, no,
Yeah.
there's frogs will ribbon in your bed. You'll walk, you'll swat the gnats about your head, et cetera, et cetera. But that was, it was, how do you convey that back and forth, but doing it in a fun way was hard, but it ended up being really, really fun.
Because they were dark things. How do you do the dark things? All the people that die.
Wailing moms over
when
sons
the water
now dead.
comes over them, they were disobedient. They're walking through the Red Sea and then everybody dies. But then you have to kind of make a gag at the end of the chapter. Those were tricky, to be respectful and make a gag.
Well, you know what I love when they're walking through the Red Sea, you've got a mama fish on one side and a baby fish on the other side. And the baby fish is going, why? And the mama says, don't worry, I'm coming soon.
Yeah. It was to be respectful and to be reverent, but we wrote a disclaimer in the very beginning because obviously this is not the Bible. It's not trying to be the Bible. We are trying to get kids to read. And one of the target markets we're finding is boys. A lot of boys the reluctant reader category. They don't like to read.
Yes.
So we get tons of moms writing us, oh my gosh, my sons are reading your books. And I'm not even having to, motivate them any other way than just here's the book. So if they can learn to read, they'll read their Bible, right?
Well, and in each, you probably noticed, Chris, that at the end of each Bible story, there's a Bible reference there of where that story came from. So it allows, a family to say, okay, well, let's read this in the Bible, right?
And also the critical thinking skills. When they read the real Bible, they go, hey, that wouldn't happen. What would happen? How did the real story go? We had a young kid. One of our friends did at her church, a boys' Bible. It was a boys' book club. And there were 6 or 7 boys in it. And they loved the book. They're the ones that she would only read them a chapter every time. And then they would have pizza and games and they would look up all the verses and they colored their books. And one of the kids we had read the first chapter. And as he's reading it, he goes, that would never happen. And I thought, oh, great. He's learning critical thinking skills on top of this. So, it's just a lot of different ways we feel like, God can use it.
You know what this makes me think of is as adults, we don't do this. We encounter biblical stories as, okay, what's the lesson here? How do I apply that to my life? We aim at the head.
Right.
But kids put themselves right in the middle of it and they think, well, what would I do in this situation? How would I react if I saw Noah's Ark? What would happen if I were there in the miracle of feeding all these people with just a little bit of food? That's amazing. And as grown-up adults and, looking at the theology with all this, we're not as caught up in the story when maybe that's part of what Jesus talked about, unless you become like a little child. What do you think?
Right.
Absolutely. I think, with the Bible, I think the authors want us to smell what's going on. They want us to, they want us to be able to see, they want us to be able to feel. And we kind of set ourselves back from the scriptures and not really, enter
we're
into
so
it.
busy trying to teach something out of it and not really trusting God's transformation process. And if we're always just hammering our kids, then basically we're losing on who that kid is and the discovery process. And for me, that's a lot of it is the discovery. And, I wasn't the great student. So a lot of it, I had to learn things on the back end. I mean, I figured out how to work school, obviously. I was a good girl. But as far as Jack was much better at the subject matters. And so a lot of kids are coming from more my place. They just don't, as intellectually, the dots don't come as fast. They're more visual learners. And how do we get those visual learners to read the Bible, right?
Exactly. Okay, so you two just have so much fun with it. I can tell you work together really well. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night, Jack, and say, Liz, wake up. We got to do this in the next book?
Oh, that's usually me. I'm like, oh my goodness, that we can do that. Oh my
Liz is
goodness. Oh my goodness.
not so-
I'm the crazy one.
Yes.
He's the sane one. He's the, hey Liz, you need to go up in the office, and how many hours have we got in?
So what happened? Here's how it works, Chris. So Liz and I will have an outline. We'll have it kind of laid out, and then Liz will take a first shot at it.
Yeah.
And she'll go crazy, and I mean, because that's her job. Be as crazy as you can possibly be, and then it comes back to me, and I look at it and I go, whoa.
Or little boy things. Yeah.
And then I'll say, well, yeah, this has to come out somehow to relate to the Bible, But
that's true. He did say that at one point. Hey, are we talking about the Bible or not? And I was like, oh yeah.
But we'll go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But she's the one that can really get that fun, crazy, zany thing going, and that's key.
And here's the other thing. We do have kids that have been living with us for a lot of years. And so basically they give us opinions. Oh, no, that wouldn't happen.
Oh, you're talking about our kids.
Yeah, our kids. Yeah. And they're all parents now, and we have the grandkids. So our grandkids are the age of this audience. So we have a training ground of passing this through to see, how does this really work?
Yeah. So it's called Patrick Wigglesworth's Bizarre Bible Adventure Series. We have a link at chrisfabrylive.org. It's packaged, the first 3 have been packaged, I think this year, Over My Head, Tricky Times, and Dangerous Dilemmas. That's the Old Testament stories. The New Testament's coming, and you can find out more again at the website, chrisfabrylive.org. More straight ahead on Moody Radio. Coming up tomorrow on Chris Fabry Live, we have Pastor H.B. Charles. We're going to talk about the Psalms. Oh, don't miss that one. And then on Friday, a great call-in. I want to know about the lunchbox notes that you've received or that you've sent your kids to school with. We're going to talk about that and hear some music on Friday from Point of Grace. Rosie's Book Club is coming up next Monday. Make sure you get a copy of The Wise Woman. Patrick Wigglesworth could not be with us today on Chris Fabry Live, but Liz and Jack Hagler can. They are the creators of Patrick. And I wanted to ask you, Jack, what kind of feedback are you getting? I can go online and look at what some people are saying, but face-to-face, what do people tell you?
Yeah, we were just recently at a homeschooling conference and selling our books, and we had one young man come running up to our booth, and we didn't know exactly what the story was, but he comes up and he goes, my parents bought all 3 books yesterday, and I read them all last night. I mean, they're 250 pages apiece approximately. And he was so excited. He loved the books. And we had a young lady, she stopped us in the hallway. We'd been teaching a class, and she stopped us and told us how much she loved it. And some parents had come up, and they were excited. So they all, when we ask them, they all say it's funny. That's the first thing out of every kid's mouth. It was funny, and I love the stories. I love Patrick's life, so it was just, the kids are just enjoying it. And they don't necessarily go, oh, I love all the Bible stories, but they all love the whole, getting the experience of Patrick's life in and out of the Bible.
Yes. All right. Our caller, Duncan, is on the line. Duncan, how old are you?
10.
10 years old. Exactly. You are right smack dab in the middle.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So Duncan, tell me why you called. What'd you think of Patrick?
I thought that it was amazing. But I had a question.
Okay. All right. Go for it.
In the book Tricky Times, in the part with Solomon's Temple, why was Patrick's sunglass lens scratched on one side? Was that?
Oh my gosh, that's a perfect question. I don't know. We just thought it was funny. That is such a perfect question. You are a good thinker. My goodness.
Part observant too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just a funny kind of Patrick is always, there's something always happening, and he always kind of gets the short end of the stick, and that was his way.
Duncan, the thing is here's the thing. We wear a lot of glasses and they do get scratched a lot. And that is kind of annoying. So I think that's probably where it came from. We're old and we have to wear glasses when we read. So that's probably where it came from. But good question.
But that's what a good story has a lot of tension in it, even to that low, that minimal, the micro tension that you have. And that's because that's what our lives are filled with. Right. It's filled with tension. And it's the tension a lot of times that we want to get at. We want comfort. We want ease. But it's the tension that draws us, that drags us. Jack, in your own life, it was you coming to the end of yourself that took you to, considering Jesus, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Duncan, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Duncan.
Thank
Great
you.
to hear your voice.
Our correspondent to Patrick Wigglesworth's Bizarre Bible Adventure, Duncan, right here. I want to know about, for the story about Joseph. Joseph is accused of something that he didn't do and pays the penalty. Mm-hmm. So does the current story, when Patrick comes back into his own life, does that mirror some ways that biblical story?
Yes. We did do that one as a mirror. Yes, we did do that.
What happens to him?
I got to look back here. He got in trouble. We have so many stories. I think he got in trouble and he got accused falsely, right? Wasn't that one about the drink?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So we did try and mirror that.
He got accused of cheating, right? That was the one where he got accused of cheating on a test, and he hadn't done that, and so he had to go through this whole process there.
But then it came out in the end, worked out okay. I remember something about the juice.
Yeah.
I haven't read.
But so we're always looking for connections, and Patrick's stories are kind of crazy. I mean, that's sort of the whole idea. But we're trying to look at that. We do try real life
but
connection.
That one we did work really hard on that one, trying to make it fall.
Yeah, it was that science test, right? Where he had been accused, and then he said he was guilty.
Oh, right.
It's amazing how you write these things and they're all fresh in your mind. And then Chris, you bring it up and you go,
No, it's that's real life. That's real life. Like we were talking a little earlier. The other question, and maybe there would be parents who would have the same questions, like, okay, so you're retelling these stories as Patrick, and you got the disclaimer, this is Patrick's view of what happened with Moses or Joseph or whatever, David. But if you're with Child Evangelism Fellowship, in your background, there's got to be at some point a place where Patrick encounters the wordless book, and there's a gospel presentation in here. Yeah. And I don't see that in the books. Right?
Well, I did draw that in book 4. I did draw it because there was the opportunity to, and I'm thinking about putting it on the website. I didn't include it in the book. I have it all drawn out. He has a conversation with his dad. His dad explains to him the gospel, and I am thinking of putting that on the website. We just haven't got to that part yet, but that would be in book 4, his interaction with Jesus. We are absolutely about kids coming to know the Lord and being able to have an experience where they can jot down when they have that transformation or relationship with God. So,
So the point being that we did end it. We go through the gospel by him retelling the story from his experience with watching, Jesus on the Via Dolorosa and so forth. We actually did write, a clear sort of gospel presentation, but we just felt like it didn't fit into the book because of the genre. Yeah. And it didn't feel like, it felt like we were forcing. And the one thing Liz and I said to us over and over and over, do not preach.
We're not going to preach.
We are not preaching through this book.
We really are convicted that we just want to have this experience, and the kids want more. They want the real Jesus, and not try and capsulize it in something simple.
I love that. Okay, well, last question. Let's see if you agree with me on this. And I love what you've done with Patrick, with the books, getting younger kids into reading the Old Testament, seeing the purpose for each of the books in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and bringing them through that. But I think in order to whet the appetite of a child, to get them to read the Bible, to see that there's something important here, the best way to do that is not with a gimmick or pictures or cartoons or anything. The best way to do that is for them to catch it from their parents, to see their parents reading the Bible and trying to figure out how in the world do I live this out in my own life.
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example of that, Chris. So this past weekend, we were up at in Sacramento, where my daughter and her husband live, and they have 3 kids. And so it's early in the morning. We're staying with them, and I'm on the couch reading my Bible, and my grandson comes in. He just turned 8, and he comes and snuggles up with me in the couch, and I said, "Hey, let's keep reading." And so he listened as I was reading the Bible, and I was, stopping and explaining some things and so forth. I mean, it was such a cool moment for him just to come in, but he sees, hey, here's my grandfather reading the Bible, and he comes right over.
Isn't that great? Catch that. And I think there are adults who need to read Patrick Wigglesworth because they don't know how all the Bible fits together, so it'll work both ways. You two are, we shouldn't be allowed to have this much fun on the radio. Liz, Jack, thank you for your heart for children, for your heart and passion for getting them into the Scripture in this really creative, imaginative way. And I can't wait for folks to read book number 4. If they haven't read the first 3, read those. But get number 4 coming out in February. And then next October, the last book, number 5, That's a Wrap, comes out. And that takes you through from Genesis to Revelation then. And Patrick Wigglesworth's bizarre adventures there. God bless you, friends. Keep doing what you're doing, okay?
Thank you so much for having us on, Chris. We appreciate it.
What a treat to have the Hagglers with us today at the Radio Backyard Fence. Again, we have a link for you right there at chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. Can't wait to talk with Pastor H.B. Charles tomorrow. You're going to be encouraged by his look at the Psalms. We'll do that right here on Chris Fabry Live, production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute. Thanks for listening.